Well, hello and welcome to Assay TV. Today I'm delighted to be joined by Andrew Richards, who is the Executive Chairman of Big River Gold. Andrew, great to see you this morning. Big River Gold, exciting time for the company. You're up there in northeastern Brazil. The project, I believe you've completed your DFS, you're fully permitted, you're ready to begin construction as soon as you've raised the money. So first question, how much do you need and how much have you raised so far?
Thanks for the invitation, Leo. Good to see you again. Interesting question, a little bit circular. You're right, we are well advanced in where we're at in terms of design and commencement of the project. We are in the project financing or project funding stage at the moment. And as first part of that, we have actually raised a significant amount in terms of an equity raise, which will always be part of a conditions precedent of any kind of funding. And that will allow us to commence some of the physical activities on site. And that will go a long way. It also introduces onto our register some very significant equity funds from North America, most notably Dundee. And we certainly welcome having their experience and expertise joining the company, and there's certainly a vote of confidence in really a large long-term project.
How much have you raised so far then, that equity raise?
Well, that equity raise was about 15 million US or 20 million Aussie. And that allows us to really start putting the project team together, finalising some engineering design, improving the water catchment and water supply, and also advancing things like the power lines and the grey water pipeline, which is those who have been following the project will know we do need that that water pipeline. We're actually taking the sewage from a nearby town and treating it, to use it as processed water on site. We still are on the search, obviously, for additional funding, and that will continue post-Christmas, certainly when the coronavirus epidemic restrictions allow people to make more decisions and go to site. So that's been quite positive so far, I've got to say. What this funding does do, of course, it also allows us to reconsider, I think, perhaps some of the designs we had finished in what you mentioned in the DFS, which was to do with our crushing and comminution circuit, because, like us, Dundee believes that this is a much larger project and would like to see, as we would, a seamless transition between what we are doing in our first stage starter plant, if you like, into whatever the expansion will be down the track.
Absolutely. So very encouraging to get some equity funding in very, very early on. And you mentioned, I mean, you're taking a sort of a phased approach to this this project. I believe you've got, what was it, 2.43 million ounce resources, and what was it, about 1.6 million ounce in reserves, but you're only going to be mining about half of that in the first phase. Why have you taken this phased approach?
When this was first looked at some years ago, obviously the gold price was a lot lower, but the capex was quite high. Also, there were two other issues that had to be addressed. One was with the size of the pit. We had to move the road that was very close to us, which is not in itself a problem, but it will take time. The main thing, I think, was the access to water for processing. It is a dry area of Brazil. When people think about jungles in the Amazon, they don't think about this area, which is both good and bad, because we don't have big rainfalls and floods, but we also have issues about water we can use for process. So when we looked at the stage process, what we decided to do was to make it smaller to reduce the capex, but also we are looking at recycling all the water we can. We recycle 80% of that water, so we don't use tailings dam, which in the current climate in Brazil is great. We have dry tails, stack them on the waste dump, and what will happen then is any additional water we need, we'll source from the dams we've got on site. And we've also got arrangements with nearby towns to take on their sewage water, which will pipe down the highway to our project, process it on site, and use that. So so that's why we've done a staged approach in this regard. We're just going to get stuck into this. I think as it is right now, this 10-year project throws off a lot of cash, and we can certainly have all the infrastructure we need to get that started. And then we're looking at an expansion, I think, hopefully sooner rather than later.
In that first phase, what are your sort of all-in sustaining costs? And you mentioned it produces a lot of cash. How much per year are we talking?
Well, I think our all-in sustaining cost will be about $713 US, and in the first 4 or 5 years, significantly less than that, because we're treating slightly higher grade. The average over 10 years, we're producing about 750,000 ounces out of the plant. And it throws off the EBITDA of about $74 million per annum. In the first few years, that's significantly higher than that. It's closer to 80. So it's quite a robust model, quite a robust project there. The IRR is about 64% after tax.
And you mentioned that Dundee sort of are keen for this project to be bigger, and there is exploration potential on site, I believe. The ore body extends further beyond where you've been drilling, you think, and also along a shear zone.
Look, yeah, I believe you're right. It's a major shear zone. When South America and Africa are joined together, this shear zone cut right across the two, and you'll see this in West Africa, it's North Cameroon. But we do know it goes deeper at quite a big width, about 50 meters thick. At the time, the gold price was fairly ordinary, so the drilling didn't go much deeper than that. But we do know this thing continues on, and in fact, we also know we've got 600,000 ounces of inferred resource, which needs to be converted, immediately below our reserve of 1.6. So the exploration upside in that area alone is very high. We also have some high-grade plunging shoots coming out, which have not been drilled from that ore body. And as you say, down to the south in that same shear zone, we've got a large exploration holding, which has been somewhat underexplored as people focused on this main deposit, which shows some early, quite promising signs for satellite extension deposits.
And when do you think you'd be able to get out there and have a look at some of those areas?
Well, I think realistically, maybe the first and second quarter of next year we'll start to get more boots on the ground. Obviously, with coronavirus and Brazil being fairly hard hit, exploration activities have been curtailed, and activities on site we've actually curtailed as an abundance of caution. Having said that, there have been very few mines in Brazil that have lost production due to coronavirus because it's classified as essential service. Nonetheless, we have taken precautions so that people and their families have been affected, either indirectly or directly. But I think, realistically, we're looking first or second quarter of next year.
And you touched on this a little bit earlier, but the infrastructure and the location of the mine is interesting, because a lot of people think of Brazil, as you say, as sort of, jungles and very wet, but you're quite near to the coast, I believe. And there's also, I went on your website and had a look at some of the drone footage there, which some of our viewers might want to go and do. And there's some interesting, you've got power lines there, you've got a road there, you're quite nearby to a town. It seems like everything's pretty much in place for you there.
Look, it is. I've been working on a lot of mines around the world, and this one has so many boxes that are ticked. As you say, it is right on the highway. In this first stage, our open pit, when it's finished, is completed, will be within 50 meters of the main highway, and that's a highway that within 2 hours we're on the coast of the major port there, with the capital of the state there. We do have cheap access to cheap grid power, which is another reason why our sustaining costs are so low. It's not generated power. We can actually access the services of nearby towns. We have water. We own the property, so there's no reserves. There's no landholder issues. We don't impact on anybody. The terrain is fairly flat. The infrastructure is really good, which means supply of services and parts and supplies is very cheap compared to other places.
And so as we go into 2021, what are your sort of key milestones, do you think, for the year ahead?
Well, I think we need to finish up. We're just doing some option studies on the expansion to make sure that we've optimised the plant so we have a seamless transition to any expansion. We are finalising the location design of the power plant and of the power lines and the water pipelines. We're securing our water supply, and we are then still looking forward to getting our EPCM team together, our project team, and we'll progress with finalising the last stage of project funding.
Absolutely. So exciting times for the company. Lots of work for you to get your teeth into, so to speak. Yes. But thank you very much, Andrew, for taking us through the project. We look forward to seeing how things develop in 2021.
Absolutely. Okay, thanks so much, Leo. Thank you very much.
Thank you.